Yeah. Let's go.
My name is Sheik Mozart and I'm here to explode important media topics with kids ministry pros. Whether you got a mega budget or just minimal dough. Welcome to the Kids Church Visual Show. Hello and welcome to the Kids Church Visual Show with Sheik Mozart. I'm Sheik Mozart. This is a show that wants to help you visually communicate the gospel to your kids. On this episode, we're going to explore effective ways to use Kids Church visuals in a smaller church. But first, let's hear what you had to say. If you had an unlimited budget, what's one thing that you would add to your ministry?
A lighting system. A lighting system adds a lot of fun visual effects that really enhance the visual experience for kids. Helps significantly increases with capturing attention, aside from things that you can do with no budget.
I would buy some new tech equipment. I would love some new TVs in our check-in area, and I'd love to create a sensory room for our kids as well.
A huge room building, like multi-purpose area to hold events and public things, to invite community things to come in and do things at the church to make it, a shared space. That would be my dream.
I think I would add an assistant. We always need help, right? I need somebody that thinks like I do.
I would definitely say like subscription program to get any media I want, any visual aids, any videos, worship, all of that. That would be unlimited use of that would be excellent.
And I would let everything be free for kids. Camp, all the events, you could add in so much more, but I would always try to be really conscientious of how much things cost. Like camp every year goes up at like $300. So we could have so many more kids coming and experiencing the gospel if everything could be completely free for every child.
This is going to sound like an oxymoron, but paid volunteers. I would add people to my team, whether you want to call them staff or, like paying your volunteers in gift cards. But I would want to use that money to invest in building my team and kind of building up the people that I work with.
Probably budget room for intentional conversations, like probably through food, through community, with people in our area that are asking, who God is, like outside our church walls. If I could just sit down with different people and say, hey, you're meeting me at a certain restaurant, I'm going to buy your meal, and you can ask anything about God, about faith, about community. I think, at least in our area where I'm at, there's just a lot of searching and a lot of multicultural religious questions being asked, and not really anybody answering them.
I was teaching an element on the Holy Spirit, and it's a simple one, but using things like milk and chocolate syrup to talk about stirring up your faith and creating something new within you. Well, I mean, that's a cheap thing, but in my case, when you have multiple campuses and multiple rooms, it just adds up, and so sometimes we have to be like, well, that's a great idea, but how can we do that for a little less? And so unlimited budget, man, I'd be using things that are like big boards that kids can hold. Getting a team together of people that would help script out object lessons, would help come together with themed ideas for every month. So, man, if we've got a big idea, it's coming in really big. It's not just an image on a screen. It's not just words from a leader's mouth. We're getting kids involved and are holding up signs because I'm drawing them in, and they're a part of the learning process. So that's what I would use a big budget for, is object lessons and stage design stuff.
Hello and welcome to the Kids Church Visual Show with Sheik Mozart. I'm Sheik Mozart, and with me today is Priscilla Coffee, who is a kids pastor in Warsaw, Indiana. Priscilla, welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm excited. Today we're going to be talking about how to use visuals, church visuals, kids church visuals in a smaller church. And we talked a little bit in the last season about some of that stuff. So I'm excited to kind of explore it in a little more detail. And I was just blown away by how creative you were. So I'm really, really pumped.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you for being here. And
Yeah.
just to kind of start us off, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, why or how you got into the kids ministry world.
Okay. So I originally was born and raised in Florida. Shout out to Sean Rudy down at Lake Wales Assembly of God, which is now
Yeah.
Impact Church. They went and changed
Right.
their name on me. But I grew up down there. I feel like I was born on the front pew kind of a thing. So I grew up in an AG church. When I want to say 12, I was at like a middle high camp for the summer. Felt like God called me into ministry, went back to my home church, told my kids pastor, hey, I think God wants me to be a kids pastor. And he goes, cool, I'm going to teach you everything I know. And then literally proceeded to teach me everything he knew until he shipped me off. Yeah, that was Sean Rudy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then he shipped me off to, he's great. A lot of what I still do today, I learned from Sean. So then he shipped me off to Dick Gruber at the University of Valley Forge when he was teaching there. And so I got my next step of my ministry there. Interned with Randy Christensen, is he still in Minnesota or is he in Wisconsin? He's somewhere in the Midwest.
I don't know where he is, but he's another legend.
Yeah.
And Dick Gruber is a legend.
Yeah. So good. I got good people in my background.
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful for their influence. And so I've pastored in Pennsylvania. I was in Ohio for a little while. The pandemic kind of turned everything upside down. And then I found myself over the course of time at a small church here in Indiana that couldn't afford to pay a kids pastor. And for the last decade or so, I've been bivocational. And so I said, all right, Jesus, you're paying my bills with my corporate job. Send me to a church that can't afford me, but needs me. And that's where he's put me. And I just hit my 3-year mark at Abundant Life. When I started, we had 3 kids. Now we have about 12. So in 3 years' time, we've tripled our numbers, which is quadrupled our numbers. Which is a huge win for us, even though we're still fairly small.
Well, I think that most kids ministries kind of find themselves in that space. I think that a lot of times it's maybe the big kids ministries or big churches that get a lot of the attention, but the reality is that most churches and most kids ministries are fairly small.
For sure.
So what do you do for your corporate job? What's your other job?
So I've been in the customer support realm for probably the last decade and a half or so. And right now I manage a support team at a local bank. We work in the back end corporate offices. We support our corporate clients. So we're like sales support for our internal sales team. And then we're also the team of people that are business clients, like corporations who bank with us, will call my team when they have problems with, pretty much anything. Then if we can't help, we liaise with the rest of the bank. And so that's been good. I started that job actually about 3 months ago now. I just hit my 90-day mark. So far, so good. Yeah.
And do you find ways that your corporate job kind of helps you in your ministry gig?
Yeah, I'd say it kind of goes back and forth, if I'm being honest. So a big portion of what I do corporately is I'm team coaching. Like I'm more of a people manager. Like I work at a bank, but I don't actually work with money. I work with people. And I'm not the frontline people. So I do a lot of pastoring of my team by way of corporate coaching and training and preparing people for the next step, kind of a thing. But then part of being in a small church environment is that you don't always get the higher level strategy and vision that comes from corporate leadership.
Sure.
Because, you've got 3 or 4 people that are just kind of doing everything to make it work. So it has been nice to have that corporate experience, bringing it to a small church and go, okay, let's bring in some bigger vision mindset, even in our smaller context, so that we can properly plan for growth. Learning what it means to look at a roadmap, learning what it means to forecast your finances, and then take that back to the church and go, okay, guys, we can't just make it work every week. We actually have to sit down and we have to have a vision for this. We have to have a plan. We have to know how to actually systematically build this out so that when God sends us more people, we're ready for that growth and not just kind of chasing the snowball down the hill.
Yeah,
So I've
sure.
gleaned a lot of leadership skills that I've definitely been able to take back into my role as a kids pastor for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's some really good experience for, yeah, not just kids ministry, but ministry in general.
Yeah, agreed.
So what does your kids ministry look like as far as like the Sunday morning experience? What curriculum are you using? What kind of service layout?
Yeah, it's changed a lot in the last 3 years, honestly,
Sure.
because so when I came on, they didn't have a kids pastor, so I didn't replace anybody. And what they were
Mhm.
doing was their entire ministry staff and the board was kind of each taking a week and just kind of doing something for the kids. They
Oof.
didn't want to leave the kids hanging.
Yeah.
And so what the kids got each week was varied. Nobody, actually, I think our lead pastor, his parents were kids pastors. So he really had an idea of what to do. But for the most part, it was very much a let's just kind of wing it and make sure that the kids aren't bored sort of thing. Which don't get me wrong, is great. I'm glad that instead of just letting the kids wander, they had some intentionality.
Yeah.
But so when I showed up, they were like, "Awesome, you're here. Here it is. Go for it."
Yeah.
Right. And so I think I interviewed and I came to visit on a Sunday, and then they were like, "Yeah, let's move forward with this partnership." And then I was just in charge.
Yeah.
They were all
Right.
good. So
Yeah.
it was just the Pastor Priscilla show for a while, and still kind of is.
Mhm.
One of the things of being in a small church is you don't have a lot of volunteers to go around. And so I have a handful of people who are great. And when they can be, they are there. But life circumstances doesn't always mean that I have people every week. So
Sure.
oftentimes it's just me. And I started kind of a structure that I'm used to, and is you drop your kids off when you arrive at church. Kids have a full service dedicated to them. You pick them up at the end. And
Mhm.
we did that for a couple of months, and it just burnt me out because church started at 10, which meant parents are dropping kids off by 9:30
Mhm.
sometimes. And then church ended at noon, and then they weren't going to pick their kids up until 12:15, 12:30. And
Oof.
so it's me in a room of kids from 9:30 to 12:30. I was
Yeah. Right.
exhausted. So I approached my ministerial staff and my pastor, and I said, can we change things a bit? And so now what we do, and has worked really well for us for the last couple of years, is everybody starts together. We do like our opening worship song set. We have like some announcements. There's some kind of fellowship that happens. And
And this is in the
then
sanctuary
this is all in the sanctuary
with
together.
the adults.
Everybody's
Yeah. Okay.
together. And
Mhm.
then we do like a quick short prayer time. And then when we transition from worship in song to worship in the word, that's when our pastor, whoever's preaching that day, will dismiss the kids to their classrooms. And so then I take the
Okay.
elementary kids, and then we go and have more of a age appropriate service. And so that's our kids
Yeah.
church time. And that gives me about an hour, give or take, which
Okay.
in our context works really well. And then,
Mhm.
parents can pick up from there. And so now you're not burning out your kids pastor. I get
Yeah.
to
Right.
kind of participate with the adults.
Yep.
It also means I get to be there as people are arriving to church, because I don't care where you are, people always come late. It just happens, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so
Yep.
previously, I didn't get to interact with really anybody, but now I hang out in the lobby. I'm there for check in. I'm also there to help greet people. And so it gives me an opportunity to be more part of the church as an adult and a pastor,
Yeah.
and then also
Right.
still gives the kids kind of a dedicated time where we can do something more geared to their age bracket.
Sure.
So
For
that's
sure.
yeah, so that's what it looks like for now. As far as curriculum goes, high voltage is one that I've used before, and then I'm currently using now.
Mhm.
They did a huge sale, I think, at the end of 2022. Brian Dollar was switching from like the CD jump drive individual like packages to a
Mhm.
subscription model, because that's
Yeah.
where curriculum is going these days, which is great.
Right.
And so they wanted to clear out their stock, and I think everything was like 60% off. And so I went to the board and I was like, hey, I know we're in approval season right now, and I technically don't get my budget till January, but can I have $300 right now? And I bought 2 years worth of curriculum. And
Oh, that's great.
so it's just on my shelf. And so
Yeah.
that's what I'm using. So I was like, this is like thousands of dollars and I can get it for dirt cheap. So
Yeah,
pro tip,
sure.
anything
Right.
that's old or the last generation is what I'm looking for because it's usually on sale.
Yeah.
But I bounce back and forth between high voltage and then my own stuff right now.
Yeah, sure.
Another part of how we do kids ministry is once a quarter, we try to do what we call Kids Life Live. So Kids Life is our kids ministry name, Abundant Life. So all of our ministries have life in it. When people come to church, we say, welcome to life. We're glad you're here. And so Kids Life Live is our combined family service in the main sanctuary where everybody's together for the Sunday and I'm in charge. And so I get my kids and any of my staff, and we basically do kids church with the adults. It gives them a chance to know what they're getting. But because we stream, well, I take it back. We don't stream. We record and then post later because we can't afford to stream. But because we record live, when we do that, we do my own curriculum that I write. And so this last one we did, I had a series on like one body, many parts from Corinthians. And it was a whole like Mr. Potato Head theme. And so I had Mr. Potato Heads everywhere. And we talked about the different ministry offices of the church and what ministry looked like inside and outside the church walls kind of a thing. That's pretty much it. We have a volunteer who does some Wednesday night activities for us. But right now we have one kid who shows up for that with his parents who attend the adult Bible study. Beyond that, as far as programming goes, that's pretty much it. And that's largely because we just don't have volunteers for it. We started having some younger families visit here and there that have nursery age kids. So my current good problem to have is that we've got younger families that are starting to come and we have a need for ministry to preschool and toddlers, but I don't have anybody to do it yet. So, you celebrate it, but also, Jesus, I need help. Like send me people. But
and it's funny because it's like no matter what size church you are, volunteers is just a constant universal issue that everybody has.
Yeah, always. And I mean, I've been oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you can say what you were going to say.
Oh, I can say, like, I've been in kids ministries where you've got 80, 90 kids, and you're still always looking for volunteers. It is what it is.
Right.
I've never done youth ministry, but I venture to guess that kids ministry is always going to be your most volunteer heavy department in your church, just because of ratios and legalities and safety and liability, always. So.
Yeah. Plus, kids are kind of the least independent. So when you're getting to like teenagers, they can kind of, to a degree, take care of themselves, and it's the workload for volunteers is less.
To the event.
Yeah. Right. So in the hour that you have your kids, what's kind of the general order of service for you guys?
Yeah. So I always start with a time of testimony, although that's not what the kids think of it as. They don't use the word testimony. So I always gather everybody together and I like, all right, who's having a good day? Thumbs up. Who's having a bad day? Thumbs down. If you've got a thumbs up, I want to know what's good. Like, and then every kid gets an opportunity to kind of say, well, this is something good that happened to me this week. And then we close that out by me saying, well, we're going to praise God for all the good things. And actually this past week, one of our girls, Lily, she's like, can we make it a chant? And I was like, yes, we can make it a chant, because she plays sports. And so now it's all right, praise God on 3, 1, 2, 3. And then everybody's praise God. And that's kind of how we open the service, which is a lot of fun. Using the high voltage curriculum is nice because of the video elements that come with it, which do two things. A, they provide that visual connection, which a lot of our kids desire. And B, they give me great transition time. So then we kind of follow, when we use the high voltage, we kind of follow the built-in agenda. All right, let's check out, the theme of the day. And we play the intro video, which gives me 3 minutes to breathe and get my next thing ready. We always do a time of like offering and announcements and points. The kids can earn points towards like a special Sunday. They get points for bringing their Bible, points for bringing a friend, points for bringing the offering, that kind of stuff. Right now, they're working up towards a game show Sunday, which is something I learned from Dick Gruber. And that's just a Sunday of nothing but games. And they're kind of, it's funny, they're excited to be like, oh, we don't have a lesson. We get to play games. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be games based on all of the lessons we've had for the last couple of months. But, you know, they won't know. But so like offering announcements, points, things like that. And then we always have a Bible story. We always have a time of sword drills where we go over our Bible verse. And I give away really, really dumb prizes. Like really dumb prizes. I'll just find random stuff because I can't really afford to go out and buy cool things. Right. So this is my first pro tip for a small church on a shoestring budget. I have started giving out weird, absolutely unordinary, dumb prizes that you wouldn't think would be valuable. I grabbed a potato from my kitchen one Sunday, got to church, found a random piece of ribbon somewhere in my drawer, tied the ribbon on it. And because it was near Christmas, when I announced what the prizes were for that day, I called it the Christmas potato. My kids fought over this thing. They all wanted the Christmas potato. And like when the ribbon fell off, they were devastated. And so I have given away random coffee mugs that I found at Goodwill that have like, you know, like people on it that they don't even know, like pop culture things from like the 80s and 90s. I've given away, somebody brought me like Angel War DVDs. If you remember what those were. I gave those away.
Back in the day.
This is cool. I've never seen this before. And I'm like, it's because it's like 2 years old. So I found a half full bag of marbles in a drawer at the church one day, and I gave that away, and they were very excited to get it. And so I'm like, I don't need to buy fancy prizes apparently because my kids are just weird. They get excited about cheap stuff. And then, so we've got Bible study, sword drills, and then we always have like a lesson or the sermon portion, which for me is where a lot of the physical visuals come into play. Like object lessons is something that I like to do, or I'll do a science experiment or like a magic trick or gospel illusion, if you will. And then one thing that we always do, no matter what, is a time of response, whether that is I play the piano or we put on a song. But we have what we call praise and prayer boards. And they're just random cork boards that I found at the church somewhere and confirmed that nobody was using them or owned them. And I was like, great, these belong to me now. And we have a stack of like colored paper that's probably been there for a decade. And I just cut little squares and I provide the kids with pens and pencils. And so a lot of times our response time is we'll put a song on, we might turn the lights down low a little bit, and the kids have learned that this is our prayer tradition. This happens every week, and for 3 to 5 minutes minimum, we're going to not play with each other, we're not going to get the toys out, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk to God. And so I've got a whole board of prayer requests that my kids have pinned up, or praise reports that they've pinned up. And we can go back and we can take things off the board when those prayers are answered, which is great. And then after we wrap up that response time, if there's enough time where the adults are still in service, we do the rewind or the brain drain from high voltage, and that's just here's 10 trivia questions at the end that they can also kind of earn little prizes for. And if we need more questions, I pull out JBQ stuff. And that's kind of what we do. I mean, it changes here and there. Like if I'm writing my own stuff, I might throw unique things in there that go more with the topic that I'm covering. But when we use the high voltage, that's pretty much what we do. And so it's fun. It's good times.
Yeah, I love it. And you know, what I'd loved hearing from you from the first time that we talked is I think that for a lot of folks in small churches, there is kind of this maybe a stigma that's attached to it, you know, because it just feels like a small church, we can't do much. But it's like you are just doing so many cool things, even though you don't have the budget, even though you don't have this or that, it seems like the quality of what you do is rivals anything else, and I think that just hearing kind of you talk about it is that connection is such an important part of that, making sure that you
Absolutely.
are, and even like the Christmas potato, it's knowing who your kids are, knowing what they respond
Uh-huh.
to,
Yeah.
and making sure to use that as a strength of what you do in ministry. Um,
Yeah.
I want to ask kind of a high
Sure.
POV or bird's eye view question. Um, and it's kind of in two layers. So my question is, why are kids' church visuals important in a small church? And part of it is like, why are kids' church visuals important? But specifically, why are they important for a church, for you in your size ministry?
I think, and you've kind of alluded to this already, I think in a small church, it's easy to feel insignificant,
Mm-hmm.
because, and just in our culture in general, the louder the organization, the larger it is, the more
Mm-hmm.
press it gets, the more it's on the media, right? The more you hear about it, the more you know about it.
Right.
The more people you have on your staff, the more influence you just sort of organically have, right? And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. That's just kind of how it falls.
Sure.
And so in a small church, it's pretty easy to feel like you're just, you're small fries, you're small fish in a big pond kind of thing. And the kids naturally feel like that anyways, because they're literally smaller than adults. Like physically, they're
Mm-hmm.
super short and tiny.
Right.
Their voices are softer in most cases, although I've got some kids who not so much. And kids just naturally don't get a lot of respect from adults in most cases. And so you take the being a kid in our culture and then being in a small church and you combine that together. And I think it's really easy for kids to feel lost in a small church or lonely or like they don't have a place. And I think
Yeah.
that's where you get kids that will act out because they want to be noticed. They want to feel like they belong here. So visuals, I think, in a small church help to make sure that we're saying, hey, we see you, like you have a place here. And I know when you say visuals, you're talking like what's on the screen and things like that primarily. I'm also thinking like the paint on the wall kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We want what we see with our eyes to tell you that we care, that you're here.
Yeah.
And so atmosphere, I think, is huge for a small church because I think you can do a lot to change your atmosphere without spending a lot of money. And visuals are a huge way to do that. You can use a overhead projector and put something on the wall, and suddenly you have a mural that's covering half of your room that goes with your theme. And now not only are your kids having fun because of the wonderment of what's going on, but also you've turned a boring boardroom that gets used for business purposes other days of the week into a fun kids environment. And now you've created a sense of ownership with the kids. You've created a sense of fun, and that leads to growth, that leads to the desire to come back later. And it helps communicate to your adults that says, hey, we might use this room for 18 different things in the week. But that's because all 18 of those groups of people are important.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think if there's something else I had another thought and I've lost it while I was talking. Visuals important in a smaller church. I think atmosphere was kind of the angle that I was leading towards. And I think I sort of already mentioned that is, visuals on the screen are obviously helpful, like in terms of worship lyrics. You want people to be able to know the songs that you're reading and things like that. Visuals and kids are important. But in the smaller church environment, I think it's really the atmosphere that it can create. Especially if you have multiple visuals going on at one time, because we can see a gray wall in a boring room, but if you change up how it looks, suddenly it becomes something else, and now your experience completely changes. And for a kid in a small church, that can mean the world.
Yeah. And yeah, it's funny. You talked also about how as sometimes one of very few adults in the room, putting on a video kind of gives you a little bit of a break. Um,
Hmm.
I'm working on this, like a full kind of kids church visuals course that should be out fairly soon. And that sometimes that, like, those 30 seconds of just like alone time is what helps you
Yeah.
survive. And that's, a church of any size.
Yeah.
You
Oh yeah.
talked about some specific ways that you use kids church visuals. What are some of your favorite ways as you think about all your time in ministry? What are some ways that you use visuals, whether it's like specific visuals, videos,
Okay.
whatever, or things that you've used, or just overall, what are some of your favorite ways?
Recently, I've really gotten into like screen games or
Hmm.
random YouTube videos of like things racing each other.
Hmm.
And what I found is when it's just the Pastor Priscilla show, if we have like a time of free time, instead of me expending my energy saying, "All right, we're gonna come back to our seats," and then everybody to, "Hey, stop doing that," "Hey, whatever," I just put a game on that I know they all like, and suddenly
Hmm.
they're like, "Oh, I gotta get to my seat because I want to win this game,"
Yeah.
or I'm gonna cheer on what's on my screen. And now my 3-minute YouTube video has done something for me, and I haven't had to waste my energy on that. It's done it for me, and also the kids just think it's fun,
Priscilla, can
especially if I
you,
can find
so
different ones. Oh, go
So
ahead.
one of the things that we talk a lot about as a company is like not using YouTube videos. So can you
There, that's
can you re-say that without and just like edit that out?
yeah, yeah. Okay, let me back that up. So the question was, um,
Yeah, you were talking about how you
oh,
use like these
my
racing
favorite, like my
games.
favorite way to use visuals. So
Yeah.
yeah, one of my recent favorite ways that I use visuals is like screen games, and I use those primarily as a transition, but then also because I don't want to expend my own energy to call the kids back together or like convince them to stop playing, because then you have a bit of an argument, and I'm in charge, but I don't like to be bossy if I
Yeah.
can avoid it with my kids.
Hmm.
And so a screen game, or maybe if it's not a game, it's a video where you've got like marbles racing each other, and the kids like pick a color and they
Hmm.
root for their favorite team, so to speak.
Yeah.
Putting one of those on automatically sort of it triggers something in their brain where they say, "Oh, I know this is a transition time. It's time to get back to our seats." But then also it gives them a reason to walk away from what they were previously doing. And I do have
Sure.
a couple of kids on the spectrum, so
Hmm.
that sort of visual and auditory trigger that, hey, a transition is now happening, is really really helpful for some of those kids. It
Yeah.
kind of it makes it less jarring, and they know what to expect and what's coming. And so that's been a favorite um, thing of mine recently. The other way that I really like to use visuals, and this again goes back to it being the Pastor Priscilla show a lot of the times, is I will use a video or a slide deck or something so that I have 30 to 45 seconds to like jump behind the puppet stage and put a costume on and
Yeah.
then like come back. And then
Right.
I can do a character skit. And obviously the kids know it's me because they watch me change in the costume, right? But
Yeah.
I use that video as like, hey, check this intro out. And I'm gonna go change, put on my costume, and I come back, and now
Right.
I'm like, I'm Mary Lou or Violet or one of the characters that I do. And then same thing, like I'm
Sure.
like, all right, let's watch this next video, and then I'll transition out. Um, and I have a clicker in my hand because we
Okay.
use just a laptop, and so
Yeah.
I'll have that in my pocket or my back pocket or whatever. And so like I'm literally advancing the slides while also changing my costume.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
so purely from a logistical standpoint, that's my favorite way to use
Hmm.
visuals and videos specifically, because it gives me that transition so that I can still do a lot of the really fun, engaging, creative things that I like to do,
Hmm.
but I don't necessarily need another person to vamp with me. I would
Hmm.
love it. Like if I had people, I would take people over the video,
Yeah.
but in my current context, that's
Well,
become
that's interesting too, in that visuals video can help you to like expand your own ability,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, obviously connection, having people in the room is always the ideal, At the same time, sometimes you don't. So, and that helps. And am I remembering correctly? Do you have like a theater background?
I do. Yeah, my master's
Okay.
degree is in theater. Yeah, and I've
Okay.
done some acting and directing and all that kind of stuff in like community theater.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So here's a question. Um, where do you generally get sorry. So obviously when I ask this question, I'm gonna ask where you get your visuals from. Don't say YouTube.
Don't say
Or I'll get
yeah.
in
No,
trouble.
I was following you already. I was like, okay, yeah, no. It's coming.
So overall, where do you get your visuals from?
If we're talking like video or slide deck kind of stuff, I really look for free resources.
Yeah.
And like Canva can be kind of a good place depending, like, they've got weird licensing things. You obviously have to know like what you can use and what you can't, kind of a thing. But honestly, I make a lot of my own visuals. And whether that's utilizing a computer software where I'm designing my own, or literally just sketching my own stuff. Like I've completely done that before. Studying under Dick Gruber, he used to have us write comic strips. Right. And so I still use that a lot, where I'll design my own slides, or sometimes I have a whiteboard that I still use, and I'll just draw things while I'm doing stuff. I'm blessed to have that our church worship leader is also our church admin, and she has one of the Photoshops, like she has Photoshop access. And so she does a lot of our internal design for slides and backgrounds specifically. And so I'm very, very blessed to have her on our staff, because if I do need something really specific and I don't want to pay for it, she can usually create that for us, which is great. But there are times where I will pay for something. It's usually not, like, I usually go for sales. I mentioned high voltage. When everything went on sale, I was like, yeah, let's do it. If something has a seasonal option, I look into free options all the time. A lot of your curriculums will offer like a sample lesson. And so sometimes I'll use a sample curriculum to fill a week in my schedule, or maybe I don't have something else. Bible engagement project, the curriculum is something that's launched. We're actually, as a church, talking about adopting that. And so that's exciting, because I'm like, it's all free.
Right. And we church visuals, we make a lot of the videos for that. We make a lot
Do you? Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, awesome. Yeah.
So
I don't think there's any other places, but I don't think there's anything specific. There's a couple of like kids pastors, content creators out there that are creating things for kids ministry, and I just kind of follow along on social media and keep an eye out for, here's a freebie, or here's something that's on sale, and kind of I bits and pieces here and there, and I'm kind of always collecting things that either fit within my budget or people give me for free. So
yeah, sure. Yeah, and that's just the reality of ministry. Regardless, typically children's ministries get the smallest budget of the church, so you just got to make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's another kind of high concept question. When you think about 5 years from now, what in an ideal scenario? Well, there's two different ways that people have answered this question. There's what does the way that we use visuals in church ideally look like in 5 years, or maybe if we keep going down this route, here's where we're headed, kind of deal.
Interesting.
Yeah. So 5 years from now, where are we at as far as visuals in kids ministry, and specifically at a smaller church?
Yeah, I can hear the naysayers being like, our kids are going to turn into zombies and they're not going to want to do anything, right? I don't think that's where we're headed. With the amount of engagement that I see from my kids, both relationally and like with physical objects, specifically their Bibles. Like a lot of my kids have cell phones or bring in tablets with them. We don't engage with that during service. And when we get our Bibles out, like they're using their actual like physical Bibles. And so I don't think that's going to go anywhere. Our visual
So
is
do
going to
you have them?
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have them bring in their Bibles, or do you provide Bibles for them?
Both. So I have a set of Bibles just in case a kid doesn't have them, because we do sword
Yeah.
drills and I want everybody to be
Right.
able to participate. But they're
Yeah, I love
encouraged to
that.
bring their own Bibles, which is great because they're using their own thing, and I know that when they take it home with them, like they know how to use their Bible. But then also sometimes they bring in different translations, which opens up conversation, that we can have discipleship conversations about, well, why are translations important and why are they different, and why do we need to know about them, kind of a thing. But so I don't think visuals are going to ruin our kids. They're definitely not going anywhere, and so I can see 5 years from now just more integration, but also more flexibility with that. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing some VR options in some of the
Okay.
visuals that we have, especially with how much video games are starting to kind of become part of a kids ministry environment. Now, I'm a gamer myself, but in my kids ministry, I'm sort of anti-video games, just
Yeah.
just because it creates some arguments that I'd rather not have. So at the moment, I've
Yeah.
said no to video games in my kids' ministry room. However, I've had them before in different contexts. So I'm not anti-video games. I just like right now.
Yeah,
But
I
so I
get
can
that
see like,
because
okay,
I feel the same way. Sometimes video games just bring a vibe that
yeah.
it just I don't like.
It depends on your kids, right? You pointed out
Right.
like having a relationship with your kids in this context. Honestly, because we're such a small group, I think it actually creates more problem than not, because it's easier to be left out if you've got 4 controllers and 5 kids. You know what I mean? So we just
You
don't
know,
do video games right now.
the best way that I've included video games in kids ministry is I've had them outside of the room. So like during check-in,
Yeah.
there's video game stuff there, but then by the time they walk into the room, there's no video games.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to have, I don't know that it's still out there, but like, do you remember, was it the Xbox Connect? It was the one where it like read your body language or whatnot, and that's how you played the game. I thought that was great because I was like, cool, my kids don't have to fight over a controller, but now they can all and they're physically involved. And so that's kind of where I think I would love to see us have some VR options. Like, how cool would it be if you're doing a lesson on Noah's Ark, or you're doing a lesson on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and now we're going to be like, all right, the end of service today, you're all going to relive the story. Now, there's some of them, obviously, that maybe we don't want you to actually relive the story.
Right, sure.
But some of them, it would be cool to get kind of an immersement into what this might have looked like or felt like, just as an additional element to teaching that lesson or discipling through that topic. So that's what I think. I think VR would be cool.
I
and
love
the tech part is progressing quickly, which is nice.
Yeah. Right.
But maybe 50 years from now, we'll just have AI pastors, and then I can take a Sunday off.
Yeah, that'd be nice if we had AI volunteers.
Can we do AI volunteers? That's an idea.
Eventually, there's got to be. What are some, as we kind of bring things to a close, what are some final thoughts?
Final thoughts. So we're talking about smaller churches. You really hit it on the nose earlier when you mentioned just knowing your kids and having a relationship. One of the pros to being in a small church environment is it's a little bit easier and maybe more efficient to really get to know all of your kids. I only have 12 kids on my roster. Every Sunday, I have an average of 5. I get to know each of those kids really, really, really well. And especially because I've got some kids on the spectrum, I'm able to, even though it's just me a lot of the times and I don't have a volunteer, I don't have a huge volunteer team, I still can get really specific in my discipleship with my kids. And that also extends to the parents too. And so in a small church context, it's easy to feel like you're getting lost. It's easy to feel like you get overlooked. When you start playing the comparison game against the larger churches, you're always going to lose. But I like to remind myself that Jesus picked 12, and that was his primary focus. He didn't ignore the crowds, but his focus and his purpose for his ministry was geared towards 12. And I'm like, if Jesus only picked 12, I feel like if I only have 5, I'm doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, sure.
And I guess the other thing I would say is on a shoestring budget like me, you would be very surprised what you can do with construction paper, tape, and like Chanel strings. I just lost the word. Like I can see them in my mind. The bendy, fluffy things. What are they called?
Pipe cleaners.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
You'd be surprised what you can do with construction paper, tape, and pipe cleaners. I have created entire lessons with nothing but those. Oh, with a pair of scissors. You're always going to need scissors.
Yeah, right. Always need scissors. That's great. If people want to find you, if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you online, social media, all that stuff?
Social media, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm a millennial, so I'll forever be on Facebook. And yeah, I mean, like Abundant Life, we have a website. I think it's warsawlife.org. You can reach out to me via our church if you need to. I'm not fancy, so I don't have like a branded page for my ministry or anything like that.
Yeah,
just Facebook, Insta, and you can check out the church website.
Love it. Cool. Yeah. Priscilla, thank you so much. Thanks for your insight.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me. It was good to chat. I'm excited for the season.
Thank you for joining us on the Kids Church Visual Show with Sheik Mozart. I'm Sheik Mozart, and I want you to know your Kids Church visuals matter.
This has been a podcast presentation of Church Visuals, executive produced by Carl Barnhill, hosted by Sheik Mozart, edited by Brett McLemore, title and show graphics by Jason Merrick. For more training to help you communicate the gospel to your children's ministry, visit churchvisuals.com.